How many of you guys actually went to game room yesterday? A few of you, yeah? Game room yesterday, yeah. So yeah, we saw that yesterday. There's quite a lot of talent, a lot of cool things, a lot of interesting projects, and we're lucky enough today to have a few special guests. So we're going to have Azzam, who's going to go through the art optimization process. So some of you that are used to or interested in developing materials or how to make sure that your game or your projects are optimized for mobile, we'll have a lecture and sort of demonstration about that. And we'll also have Milena, who is the marketing guru from Epic, and she's going to be talking about how you can, if you want to commercialize your projects, what the best ways to go about it, and what Epic offers you in terms of support. And I left here by myself. All right. Well, for some of you, I think most of you, is this your first or second time you've been here? First? Okay, well, 15? Wow. So you went back in time, perfect. So just a quick introduction about myself. So I'm obviously not from Rome. I'm originally from Australia, but I now live in Rome. And me and Francesco, we are the organizers. So you probably see a lot more Francesco than me online, simply because it's easier for him to manage things. But so we're the co-organizers for the Unreal Engine Meetup here in Rome. So we have the intention, because we want to create more workshops, we want to have some more interaction. Also because a lot of the participants, a lot of you guys, you come from a range of different skills and backgrounds. So we want to be able to accommodate that. We really want to create a community where everybody has some sort of access or some sort of way of developing, presenting, networking, connecting with people in the game community, and especially in Italy. Okay, and my background, so originally I developed apps and developed games, so my background is in gamification and gamified experiences. So I've usually worked in an area where I consult with companies like education or companies and that to try and find ways that we can motivate employees, the typical points, badges scenario. And then eventually I've moved on into more personalization. So I do a lot of studies and a lot of research in terms of personalizing and creating adaptive experiences for players in games. And I work as a Sapienza with Francesco, and we do a lot more research, a lot more studies, and we develop a lot of games for education, for universities, that tackle these types of issues. So we work across the spectrum, I guess you could say. So we do VR, we do games, we do applications, we do everything. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, wonderful. How many of you use Unreal on a daily basis? Alright, so you down there are just curious. So you there are just curious to know more about it?
We too are students, so we have still to learn.
Okay, cool.
We all are.
We are all students and learning all the time.
Always.
Especially in Real, which is such a...
Even Epic.
Especially in Real, with such big engine, is you never stop to learn. Alright, as Lauren already said, I'm Francesco, and I'm a researcher at Sapienza, University of Rome, and we do use Unreal for many research projects. And so this is our background, and we want to start this initiative here in Rome, since there is just little, in which we can gather a community around the Unreal Engine and try to grow together and help and support each other without backfighting, without parties. We just try to help each other as a community. This is our final goal. And just for future references, we welcome everyone to talk. So even if you have something very little, even if you are just a student, you are more than welcome to come here and present. And we always have a call for speakers open for everyone who wants to share their projects and or their knowledge on the Unreal Engine.
Even if you have like a project and you want feedback, I mean, it doesn't have to be fantastic, like graphics doesn't have to be perfect, like it can be just a really early prototype. And bring it here and we can give you feedback. Maybe we can put you in touch with someone that might be able to help you, I don't know, do something with it. Maybe you're having a certain problem with something and we can sort of help try to solve that. So think of this as like a support group,
Community
for
help.
community help for game development, for app development. It doesn't have to be games either. Okay, so keep that in mind too when you're developing things.
Alright, so I would say we can start with the first presentation.
Started using Unreal Engine like a few months ago or something like that. Just one? Two? Okay. So my name is Miljan Bojovic, and I've developed a game. I developed a game in Unreal Engine 4 that took me 3 years in spare time. So it's called Gravity Vector, and it just started as an experiment. So I've started playing with the engine, started playing with the physics, and the game started like that. But first, before starting Unreal Engine, I tried to make some. Can they lower down the volume? Never mind. So I started making games with different engines before Unreal Engine, and I wanted to make experience. Sorry for the mess. I just wanted to show you my background, which is just 2D games for fun, and this is one of them, or two of them, let's say. Then I started making 3D models and tried to make a game out of engines available at the time. This is a Source Engine game. This is just Half-Life 2, and I've tried to make a game that's just like it's a single-player game, not an app. So I couldn't do anything because I don't know how to code, so I don't know C++. And this is the game I always wanted to make. It's a FPS game with some mystery and adventure. So this all changed as I started Unreal Engine 4. And blueprints were the thing that changed my life. So I could code any game I wanted. I could make anything without writing a single line of code. So after doing that, I realized I need more skills like modeling and making them real, because I don't like having spheres and cubes as placeholders for just making the game look like something out of a, I don't know, 20th century game. So I learned Blender and 3D code and started making a game, which is this one. This is the first prototype called Momentum. It's the same, it's Gravity Vector, but at the time it was named Momentum. Then some guy just released the game on Steam called Momentum. I had to change it, so. And this game it just started like an experiment, as I said, and this is just it. Nothing, like no menu system, no head-up display, no target, nothing. I was just playing with physics. So I made this launching system to cast a capsule into space. And sorry. And then I started adding some more features. And after a year, the game started to look like a game, actually. So you can see there are a few UI implemented. There is a paint job. There's a system where, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, where you can install modules and some fancy effects here and there. And so my presentation is called Learn by Playing, or Play to Learn. What I mean with this is, this is my advice from my experience. So if you're starting with Unreal Engine 4, I do not suggest starting and making your ambitious game project at first. So what I suggest is keep playing with the engine until you feel confident enough, because that's why I did this game. If you look at the game, it's nothing like FPS game, and you may ask why. This is not my general game. The reason is I wanted to play with the engine in order to learn something and not screw up my game, because sometimes you start making a game because we want to make it, and most of the time you start the engine, you don't know how it works, and you start immediately with your big project, and you end up at the point where you where your limitation comes in, and then you get frustrated, you get angry, and maybe you leave your project and delete it. So in order to not do that, I suggest you to make a mini game. And even if you make a mini game like this one, for example, this is for learning Unreal Engine. And the reason I did it is because the second phase is releasing the game, which is another part where you should kind of test how it works if you've never done it. So the game, as I said, it started as an experiment, and I made it into an actual game, adding features and mechanics. The implementation was kind of difficult for me because I've never done something like this before. And I'm talking about making these add-ons on the capsule, the space capsule. So the experience I gained by doing this is, I haven't made my dream game, of course, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like today with this approach. And so you can see it's quite different. This is 3 years of developing a game that's just in spare time, and with spare time I mean a couple of hours a day, maybe less. All my holidays. Yeah, I had no life, by the way.
Welcome.
Game development in a nutshell. Also, this paint job is dedicated to this event. I just did it for fun. So you can see this is a hangar where we can set up your capsule before starting a level. And the paint jobs, you can choose one. This is my favorite. And this is the paint sequence. This is where I tested some dynamic material instances, where it can change the color and doing an animation like this one. So I just realized the video is too long. So this is the level selection, where you can choose the level and see some information like the score, the badge you obtained as playing the level. And this is the overview. You see the level from top. You have some information on the left, and this is the entities present in the level, so you can see what's in there. Okay, you can also access the hangar while in the level, so you can change the loadout if you need it to. For example, let's put some guns. There. So the launching system was improved, and this is the game. You start with this capsule, and you have to reach a wormhole. And by reaching the wormhole, there are challenges like asteroid fields, mines, turrets, enemies. You can shoot them if you want. And this is too long, sorry. So you can also refill your capsule if you find one of these. This will repair your capsule and reload all the ammunition and stuff. And that's it. Okay. So you can find it here if you want. And this is it. This is my 3 years of no life developing games. I guess everyone can relate. So this is it. Thank you. You have a wireless microphone? No?
I just have to use your voice.
No problem. I have not so much, but a voice, but I will manage. I think that your game is great. You made it yourself, and I can see a lot of passion inside it, and it's very cool. Are you planning to release it on Steam, or it's already there?
Well, the game is almost complete. I just need to fix some stuff and make all the levels. I'm going to show you just one section of levels right now. And it's already on Steam in a state of coming soon, so it's going to be released on Steam.
Great. When?
Second question? No, just kidding.
Can you
I
give
hope
me
January or February.
Can you give me a build to play? Maybe to
Yeah,
show
sure.
everybody?
Sure.
It would be great.
I'm probably gonna put a link in it on the Discord channel so everyone can get this build, this one. This is a meetup build, you can read it down there. And it's the only build that have the the paint job dedicated to this event.
Keep it in the final release.
What?
Are you
You can keep it in
planning?
the final release if you want.
Yeah, I will keep it.
Are you showing this to some kind of event like in Rome?
This is the first one.
This is the first one.
Yeah. Also, I didn't make this post-processing effect. This is the. Let me just.
It's pretty cool sci-fi.
Exactly. It's a bonus feature.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the level section. Oops. And I have to make these 3 more and a few special levels, which is if you find a wormhole, which is a secret wormhole, by roaming around randomly, you'll unlock more levels like this here, and they may be special levels, so it's not like a usual level where you have to start and reach the wormhole. Maybe it's where you have to fire, to shoot enemies, to collect stuff, like special stuff. And
You did also the soundtrack yourself?
that's the only thing I did not do. I got it from the marketplace. Let me just start. This is gonna be difficult because I usually use the mouse. You're gonna see me failing.
Fra.
Okay, here, this is the objective, so you can see what you have to do. And here you can see what's in the level. So there is a wormhole, which is your target, you have to reach it, planet or moon, and the asteroid field. I can go here and change something. I mean, these guns are okay. I like them.
Let me ask you one thing. All the overlay effect for the menus is done with UMG animated or something
It's
else?
UMG, and the circle coming out is the dynamic material in UMG.
Ah, okay. Got it.
I wanted to show you something that wasn't in the trailer, and this is, okay, let's get this one, a random one. This literally came up one morning, as they say, you wake up and you have an idea
Sure.
to make this possible. So you can choose every region of this capsule and change color. And you can also use what we have in the material system, so metallic, specular. And you can also save your preset here, so you can use it later.
So basically you bind the default values for each one, right?
Yeah. So there is a material with different colors, so red, green, blue, magenta, and so on. I use this as a channel to change a single color on the paint job. So you can even get this one, which is weird, I know. You can save this configuration. That's just, I don't know what name.
Rome. Rome forever.
What?
Rome.
Forever.
Rome.
I did say Rome. Forever. I can't type. I just
Version
wrote it.
4.
Okay.
Never mind. So, if I go here, I can customize and apply this set of colors. Looks kind of weird, but okay. And you can paint it.
Okay.
Is there a subwoofer or something? Because this is okay. You can see also a summary of what you have installed, so you don't have to look every single category. So this is the launcher. You can move left and right. By the way, this thing here, you see in the middle down, that's a glitch. That should not be there. So it's just to show you I'm a human being
No
like
worries,
you.
no worries.
I'm gonna go full speed here. I hope not to collide to... Okay, I'm gonna die. No. Sorry.
those are instances. The
Asteroids. It's not. It's a single instance. I don't know how it's called. The mesh instance. So it's
Okay.
many meshes in one instance.
Okay.
Yeah, I always do it in the other way, and it's
Yeah,
like
I
a
know.
scale.
And I guess the collision is done by line tracing?
No.
How you check if you're colliding?
Oh yeah, it's a line trace. It's a capsule line trace. So as you go faster, it goes further. It's pretty simple. It's not
No,
really
just to understand
accurate.
if people use the same thing that I'm also using.
Yeah, I guess it's the quicker way. I guess I'm not sure.
There you go.
Let me just retry a second. I'm trying to. Okay. Because I need a mouse for this. Whoa. And when you get close, it attracts you, so this happens. Now, what I wanted to show you is this. So every time you fail, you can check what you did. So these are still mesh instances with the spline tool. I guess you all know what it is. And oh yeah, you can check it here too. So this is it. This is the game I was working on for 3 years. And if some of you want to try it, I'm gonna put the link in the Discord. Oh, this one will confuse you. There are 2 wormholes, and you have a 50-50% to get the right one. If you don't get the right one, you're gonna repeat the level. So if you get into a loop, it's not a glitch. It's intended to be like that. Oh. Windows key. Let's see if it goes forward or not. Oh, there is also a thing called perfect momentum, which is something I keep from the original name. And the perfect momentum is gained as you reach the wormhole in one shot without restarting the capsule and without using any thruster. So let's hope we go forward. No, restart. So you can keep trying until you reach the next level. Okay, I screw up.
Okay, so it auto restarts.
Yeah, this is a restart, so I'm not gonna get the perfect momentum anymore, and any other badge, because it works if you finish the level on the first try, and if you use any kind of thruster for less than 20% of the time, by the time you reach the wormhole, you get the silver one, and if you reach the wormhole with one shot and use the thruster as you like, you get the bronze one. So it's just a rank like that. I don't know if there's more to show you except dying.
Have you thought about, I guess, the question is, would be multiplayer?
I don't know how.
I mean, because
What would be
I
the
know that it's
multiplayer?
more difficult and, requires a little bit of knowledge, but I guess that let's say the next step will be to, I think the same. Also, when you release the game, after that, you will implement multiplayer.
I don't know if I will do that, not because I'm too lazy to do it, but this is a game I've been working on to make experience. So the next game I want to make is FPS, so adventure. There will be a storyline,
Okay.
and it's probably going to be VR because that's what I want.
That's what
And this is just.
it does.
So this is it. If you have any more questions.
How did you
Yes?
make the band UI during the capsule?
Sorry?
How did you make the band UI? Is it not band?
Oh yeah, the
Oh.
curved display in front of you,
Oh yeah. Yes, it is. Well,
or it's a trick.
it's kind of a trick. Okay, let me just. No, sorry. You can bend the UMG, the 3D widget. There is a bend function. You can do it.
Oh, okay.
You can also
Yeah.
set the art. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did not do that because I didn't need to, because you can just go very slow with here. Okay. Okay. You can see the only thing bent is just the left and the right bar. These two are just polygons, they are not UMG. It's the only thing that's not UMG. Everything else is a single UMG moved in place in the way you see it. So there are 3 UMGs, the module below. The other one on the top, that's another UMG, so it's flat, but it's just tilted. So that's it. You can also turn off these if you want to save power. But as you can see, my thrusters are heating up, so and I cannot use them anymore. Let's just pull them down. Any more questions? Yes?
Every level, can you in every level achieve a perfect momentum?
That's a good question. I don't think so. You may achieve a perfect momentum in the main levels, not in the special one, because the special levels will require you to use the thrusters to complete the mission. But the standard levels, you may be able to do it. I'm not sure, because you still have to make all the other levels. Anything else?
It's going to be free to play.
What?
And have you decided if it's going to be free to play, or are you going to put
Well,
a surprise?
not this one, because this one is also a kind of investment. I would like to see if I can gain something and keep going to this road. So, because I'm not a developer full time, I'm an IT technician in a hospital. That's why I was working on this game in my spare time, and I hope to become a full-time developer. I think we all do.
Planning for marketing?
None.
So just
Not yet.
online, just
Yeah, it's probably going to be online. No weird advertisement. I don't know. Maybe something. I'm not sure.
How much game, more or less, how much time do you require to complete the game?
I hope 2 months.
No. To complete all the levels?
Yeah, to make all the levels from this category and fix some stuff. I need to fix like the.
No. I mean, not as a developer, as a player. To finish
Oh,
the
as a
game.
player, well, I don't know.
Okay.
Probably
You
a
haven't-
couple of hours, I guess.
Couple of hours.
Unless you throw your keyboard to the wall because you keep crashing. I don't know.
Okay.
I can see this working in VR. Because space
I've
thing
tried
is
it.
cool in VR.
I've tried it, and the only thing that's stopping me is the UMG. I would have to redo all UMG because I've tried it in VR and it gets the whole UMG in both views, and it's the same. So you see half of this one and half of the other one. It's kind of messy. So it's not. My plan is not to. Yeah, my plan is not to implement any new things here because. As it's finished, I'm going to move on to my project,
Release as it is.
yeah, which is FPS games, probably. Any more questions? Oh, there's someone. I can't hear you, sorry.
For the UMG, are you using it as a 2D widget, or are you using the 3D widget?
Well, 3D widgets are inside the capsule, the one you see as a head-up display. All these are 2D. And there are 3D widgets, but rendered in screen space, which is the targets you see there. And the start point, also the restart point, which is the little arrow, circular arrow you can see there. That's still UMG, but it's not, it's projected on screen. Any more questions?
Nice job.
Thank you.
Then I would do a big clap for.
Thank you to have been here.
I needed to spread it.
Alright, I don't know if later we'll have time, but maybe if there is a little, you can play with this game. Otherwise, as I said, it will be available on Discord. Okay, so we can move to our next presentation. So we can invite here our epic evangelist, Joseph Azzam.
Hello everyone, in this talk I'm going to talk about the journey that I did into the setup for the virtual reality, for the Jumpad virtual reality, in order to expand the use of the interactivity in VR. So let me first start. My company is called Enter Reality. I founded it in 2016, but I had experience with game engines in general for quite a while. Side note, this is not my primary job. I'm a mechanical designer. I've been doing that for the last 20 years. And what has started as a hobby, or let's say as a passion, turned into my second job, basically. So what I did was to try to expand the use of, or let's say, expand the use of the VR interactivity in terms of adding something that other developers did not have the possibility to add, or add something completely customizable, let's say. So my main goal, or my main focus, my customers are mostly towards the working environment. So I usually develop projects for engineering, job training, simulation, automotive, architectural visualization, and so on. So gaming is something that I like, but something that I'm not too focused. So if we go on, say the fundings that I got are basically by myself, meaning that I was, since UDK, I was doing some character rigs, since there was a lot of retro spread. And at the time I was using Autodesk Softimage, then Autodesk decided to kill it, because of reasons. So I switched to Autodesk Maya, and I was able to get the plugin that the Epic developed, called ART Toolkit, and I was able to create character rigs using that plugin, and sold them to various customers within, of course, gaming community. I also developed two, let's say, notable things. I also developed two character creator tools for both City of Titans, which is a MMORPG, and Ship of Heroes, which are basically the same, let's say, similar games, which are both a spiritual successor to City of Heroes, if I remember correctly. And what I did was to create a character customization tool with 180 plus blend shapes in order for the user to customize their hero, basically. And also I did a lot of, as mentioned, character rigging and also motion capture. So my journey began to, when I first tested VR, I was amazed by the technology, but the interactivity was very, very limited. Mostly because, of course, if you try the Google Cardboard or whatever, Gear VR or DK2, you don't have any kind of interactivity rather than, you look at something and you select, or you push a button by looking at it for n seconds. So for me, the main goal was to add interactivity as much as possible, as natural as possible. So what I ended up doing was to research around and see what were the available solutions on the market. And of course, I took a look around and saw that these three, OptiStrack, Vicon, and Sensis, allow to move freely in an environment, and those three were mostly used for motion capture, especially for movies, especially. And but the main issue was that all three of them were way too expensive, meaning that the Vicon setup, I think that it still costs around 150K, something like that. OptiStrack is a little bit less expensive, but you still spend something like 40K. And Sense as a motion capture suite, as a different option, but as a motion capture suite that costs around 12K. So all the options were considerably out of my reach. I tested the Kinect and was a disaster, because technology was good, but was not really there. So I just ended up looking elsewhere, and I saw that two companies using Kickstarter were doing Kickstarter campaign for their motion capture suite. One was Salto and the other one was Perception Neuron, and I ended up buying two of them for €1,000, which is nothing compared to what you can do with them. So the main thing about those motion capture suits is that they use sensors, which gives rotation data. So basically, you put sensors on your body, and the software gets the data from your movement and create a forward kinematic skeleton, which is basically your movement. And that was, for me, the most important part, to get the technology at a reasonable price in order to start experimenting a bit with it. And that is exactly what I did, because in November 2015, I started doing some examples, some testing, and I was able to get things up and running quite easily. Meaning that I also got my first HMD, since previously I was borrowing the CB1 and DK2 from friends, but the main issue was that not being able to have an HMD by myself, I thought, okay, I'll start with the, let's say, with the lower one, let's say the Gear VR, and I'll start with it, and then I'll go up. So what I did was to get the Gear VR and the S7 Edge, and I was just experimenting a bit with it, and also I entered into the wonderful world of mobile development, which is quite hard. So at the time I had a little bit of troubles, but I was able to do some tests. So the first test that I released in August 2016 was just a very quick test done in my house, where I was wearing the suit and was using the Gear VR. The Gear VR gives just rotation data, so you can just look around. But combined with the motion capture suit, I was able to get positional data, and I was able to move around an environment and also interact with it. So I go on and will show the video. There you go. So you can see that I'm in a room here. Okay, so I created a simple scene in Unreal, and I'm using the Gear VR and the suit itself. You can see that the lag is quite noticeable, and the real life movement does not match exactly the movement in VR. But it was the first test, so I was quite happy with the results. Let's go from here. Okay, where was it? Okay, since I'm having some troubles with the video, I'm just doing the presentation like this, as you can see. Okay, so as mentioned, the frame rate needed a little bit of optimization, because I wasn't very familiar with the mobile development, and the lag was an issue. So what I did was to do some kind of optimization of the scene, and I also solved one of the issues with the lag, meaning that the lag was caused by the Wi-Fi in my house, so I just did the following. Okay, this is the same scene, but with a little bit more of optimization. And what I did was to use the Gear VR as the main, HMD, but I'm also sharing internet with a laptop, which you don't see here. So I'm using it as a kind of hotspot Wi-Fi. So I'm sending the data from the suit to the laptop, and the laptop gives me back the animation data. The lag is less noticeable, and you can see me walking around quite a huge environment. This is placed near my house, so I don't have any kind of restriction. And the next thing was that I was able to freely move around and achieve full body VR without, spending a fortune, like buying all the, the stuff that I mentioned before, all the tracking technology based on optical tracking. So this is completely wireless, and there's a small hub that you wear on your belt, and it basically gets the data in Wi-Fi. So that was quite interesting to develop, also because the entire setup was, as mentioned, not so difficult to achieve, and the results were quite good. So the next step for me was to change my HMD, because of course, as you know, with mobile development, the quality is not the greatest. So at the time, I had the possibility to choose between an Oculus DK2, the CB1, and the HTC Vive. Of course, you know that at least the CB1 and Vive works with tracking cameras, like ours, and the sensor that Oculus has. So the main issue for me was to also give the user the possibility to freely move around the environment without any kind of cables. So that wasn't really an option for me, at least the CB1 and the Vive. So I turned out to custom solution, which were at the time, okay. So I found out two companies. One was Sensix and the other one was Serious Simulation. Both of them sold their HMD, their wireless HMD, for, you can see, 20K for the Sensix one, and 5K for the serious simulation. So again, way too expensive for what I was developing. So I went back to the DK2, and I was able, completely by accident, I found out that it does work without the IR camera. If you just plug the DK2 without the camera, it just works similar to how the Gear VR works, meaning that you can just get the rotation. So what I did was to combine the entire thing together. So using the same setup as the Gear VR, but in this case, I also bought a backpack PC, in my case the MSI VR1, and I combined the entire thing together in order to get the full body VR experience I was using before. So let's see. Okay, I'm here. This is the motion capture suit that I was using. This is just to show the setup time in real time, not real time speed up, but in a couple of minutes you can wear it and you're able to use it. Then what I did was to go back here, was to wear all the gear on top of me and to basically use the DK2 and the power of the PC in order to get a full body experience with nice graphics, as you can see here, and to freely walk around an environment without any kind of limitation. So let's say the technology is, call it wireless, but in reality I have a lot of cables on my body and also connected to the PC. Also because the DK2 is powered by the PC itself and the motion capture suit is connected directly into the PC. This also means that the lag is less noticeable because the transferring the data via USB is way much faster than using Wi-Fi. So that was quite a good experiment, and also the community really appreciated what I was doing. So I keep experimenting with what was possible to do. And I also noticed that, okay, the feedback was great, but also the solution was quite affordable because the entire thing together cost around 5K, so nothing too out of range. But also the entire technical setup was not the greatest setup ever. Also because you need to wear the suit, you need to wear the backpack on top of you, then you need to wear the HMD, so not really user-friendly. So for me, the next step was to use some optical-based tracking solution. So I also got a nice surprise, which was Vive sent me 2 Vive trackers, and I started also to do some kind of experiment with them. And since I own the motion capture suit, I also own the version where you also have the sensors on your hand. So what I did was to basically build my own VR gloves, because at the time there weren't any, and do the entire, or let's say, use the entire setup for some kind of interactivity. So let's say, okay. And what I also did, since the Vive trackers were quite useful for a lot of different things, I also bought iKinem Orion, which is a solution that allows you to use the Vive trackers in order to basically you're wearing them onto your body, and using an inverse kinematic solution allows you to do full body motion capture. That is exactly what I was doing. Also, Noitum, which are the makers of the Perception motion capture suit, the Perception Neuro motion capture suit, saw what I was doing, and they told me that, if you want, we are creating a pair of VR gloves which use the Vive trackers. So they sent me a pair, and what I did was to combine the 2 technology together. So at the end, I created a motion capture solution that allows the motion capture for both body and fingers, which at the time was something, a year ago, actually, at the time was something that almost no one did. Mostly because, even if you go with, you go to a motion capture studio, fingers is something that is usually done in post or by, an animator later on. So this is me in my room doing this, and yeah, it was fun. Also, a lot of developers started asking me some questions, since the entire setup was based on Orion, which does most of the job, but the ability also to use hands and to basically grab objects, or in general have fingers movement, was quite interesting. So I started also to basically sell the entire setup to developers, which were a nice income for this for a couple of times, and also selling directly the motion capture data to developers. So the next step was also to add some kind of interactivity with the gloves, because you saw just the movement of the hands, but no interactivity at all. So what I did was to also create some kind of interactivity setup in order to, there you go, in order to apply the same concept for hands interaction, but in order to be used for something a little bit different. In this case, it's something related to job training, since I'm using the gloves, which you can see there in real time, for just putting together some parts. So this is mostly job-related stuff. And also you may notice that I'm using just the right hand, mostly because I had to translate the button input from the Vive controllers onto each hand. So in this case, the right hand has the grabbing option, while the left hand took care of the movement. So if I just open my hand, I enable the teleportation. If I put my hand in, let's say, neutral pose, I activate the teleportation. And if I just close my fist, I move forward, basically. And it's following the forward vector of each hand, of my hand. So, this is another example showing how if you are into welding, you can do some training exactly like this. So that was quite an interesting thing to develop, also because companies started to contact me about the expanding the possibilities of the use of the gloves, since it allows for real-time grabbing of objects, which is something that not so many developers did at the time. So the entire setup was quite successful, especially for companies who were looking for someone for developing custom projects, which then became my main focus. So what I was also trying to do was also to upgrade my motion capture setup in order to have a full body virtual reality setup. And what I did was to, first of all, I switched to the Vive Pro, and I also got the new Vive trackers and also the base station 2.0. And as you may know, those base stations allows for a wider tracking area, but they also can be linked together. So what I ended up doing was to put together the interactivity from the gloves together with the full body motion capture setup in order to have the entire setup fully working in this is just a VR template example, but I'm using my full body, I'm using the gloves, and I'm using also a menu that you can see here in order to change each hand role. So I can decide if both hands needs to do the grabbing, or if one hand takes care of the movement and the other one takes care of the grabbing. So in this case, I'm just walking around, grabbing stuff and so on. And the entire setup was quite nice to use, also because I already had both set up already made. So for me, it was just a matter of getting both of them together and use them in this particular case in this example. So the next step was also for me to get rid, because of technical reasons, of Ikinem Orion. Because Ikinem Orion works, cut off on the top, but whatever. Ikinem Orion runs as a third-party software. So you just need to wear all the Vive trackers on you. You need to run the software, you need to do the calibration, and then you can launch your UE4 project. So that was a little bit of an issue, in particular with a big customer that I had. So I was looking around for alternatives. And I found this Russian guy, which at the time I was evaluating Ikinem Orion, was developing this plugin, which is called Vive Mockup Kit. And in short, is very, very similar to what Ikinem Orion does. But one of the most interesting part is that it's a single developer and it's very open to feedback, especially for improvement of the plugin. And I've been stressing him out for the last 6 months in order to introduce additional features. So as of now, the plugin is almost at the same level as Ikinem Orion, and it's been what I've been using for the last couple of projects. And everything is done inside Unreal, meaning that the plugin for the full body runs within, is a plugin for Unreal. The gloves runs with a plugin inside Unreal, and the entire setup is basically done directly inside Unreal, of course using the Vive trackers. So that is the setup that I was creating, and this is what I've been using lately. But for motion capture, I'm still relying on Ikinem Orion since it does its job quite well. So one other thing is that I also got in contact with Noitum, again the makers of the perception neural motion capture suite, and they were asking me if I was able to provide some kind of integration for a Vive tracker with their motion capture suite. So what I ended up doing was, in short, to combine together both technologies. Yeah. So in this case, I'm using a Vive tracker, which is placed on my belly, or below my belly. And you may see that the orientation here is wrong, but I also use a UMG, very simple UMG, that allows me to reorient the character and also reorient the pelvis, as you may see here. And in this case, I'm using the full motion capture suit, but I'm also using a Vive tracker in order to drive the position of the hips, because the hips for this kind of motion capture suit tends to drift over time. And if I show you here an example, you may notice that if you start to jump around and if you go a little bit crazy, you may notice this was the first example that I did. If I start to jump around, you notice that the one on the right, which is the the perception neuron data without any kind of tweaks, you see that it's shifting because it doesn't take into account the jump or is not able to calculate the movement properly. So that was one of the last experiments, let's call it like this, that I did, and one of the Noida was quite satisfied with the results, and I'm keeping collaborating with them. So for me, the next step, especially for the full body setup and the interactivity in VR, is to extend the usability of the entire solution. Also because it's not something that will be used mostly in gaming. Also because the entire gear costs quite a lot. But it's something that I'm applying specifically within working environments. As mentioned, engineering, architecture, job training a lot, since most companies are interested in this technology, but also expand the usability of the entire setup, meaning that since with SteamVR 2.0, the lighthouse can be chained together, what I'm planning to do would be one, to convince Vive to give me stuff for free, which didn't work as of now, or just buy the additional lighthouse in order to chain them together and have a huge area where I can walk around without any kind of issues. There are still some couple of issues, meaning that I can't, if I just buy a wireless adapter for the Vive, the wireless adapter has a defined range, it's 6 meters. So I cannot still walk around the entire setup, but I need to find some alternative solution. But this is something that can be solved, I think, in a short amount of time. Also, planning, just because I like to experiment, I'm planning to also build a custom full body armor with interactive feedback, meaning that, especially for gaming, it's something that user can wear while they're gaming. And also, since I'm planning also to expand the motion capture service, to also integrate the facial motion capture using the iPhone X, which works nicely. Doesn't have the same features as, for example, Faceware, but it works quite enough. And results, as of now, are quite great. So that's it for me, and that's what I've been doing in the last couple of months. So hope you like it, and if you have a question, just let me know. I have all the gear there, so if you want to test it, feel free to, after we eat everything, feel free to ask me. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I don't speak English very well, so I speak in Italian and then Nicolas translates for me. Okay. Se tu volessi prendere il tuo personaggio e, come se tu sai farlo nel metaverse, quanti dati devo trasmettere e a che velocità?
Okay, so if you want to bring your character in the metaverse, you just need to give him the position of the trackers, because
Quindi quanti?
I'm using, you can use either 6 or 8. If you're using 8, you're also using the
position,
trackers.
rotation, and
Yeah,
scaling?
yeah, but the IK takes care basically of everything, but if you want to also have the up vector for the elbow, so you want to have this, you need 2 additional trackers from both elbows. But even with 6, without, you're wearing them on your hands, feet, pelvis, and head. Or in this case, you are using the HMD, which acts as a kind of tracker because you're tracking that in space. So, one thing, the Vive mockup kit already has some network capabilities. So in theory, the entire setup can be used for multiplayer. So that is quite interesting. Not sure how it works because not even the developers know how it works, but it's something that I'm going to expand a little bit more. Also because I'm planning to integrate the kind of multiplayer function, especially for, this was something that I do for my job, but for CAD-based projects, where you need, for example, to see an assembly machine running and so on, something that will be done in multiplayer. Also to evaluate, this is more related to job training, to evaluate if an operator on the assembly line is doing his job properly, if the movement that he's doing is correct, or he needs to do something, and in general, to study all the behavior or prevent possible accidents that may be happening onto a workplace.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been experimenting with VR as well. I tried working with CPCAS at some point. Have you tried it, by the way?
Actually, I had one at work. It worked nicely. The only thing is that I usually, when I'm working on prototyping, I just have the headset here and with the cable. So for me, the use of the wireless as of now, because I don't have space, is not essential, because I can just have everything plugged. I experimented a bit with the TPCAS, with the old Vive, and it was working nicely, but the tracking area is limited. So my plan is to expand into a huge area, but both TPCAS and the Vive wireless adapter both works in I think in a 5 or 6 meter not radius, diameter.
Yeah,
so the range is not the greatest.
Yes, I did struggle with TPCAS as well, but the inside-out tracking of Windows Mixed Reality, for example.
Yeah. Actually, I own a Samsung Odyssey since last year, and what I was trying to do was to, you can use the Vive setup basically also with the Samsung Odyssey.
But then you don't have any limitation on the volume except for the tracking sensor.
Exactly. So that there is the main issue. But in that case, I need to wear the backpack on my back and get that is something that I tried to do an experiment where I was walking around my house and I had let's say a gear.
Yeah.
Basically, I was scanning the outside of my exterior house in order to freely walk around. Also because that if you're using inside-out tracking, you don't have any kind of boundaries unless you set it.
Yes.
So even with the perception neuron suit, while I was walking around, I cannot put any kind of boundaries, because if I'm here, I move where Enrico is and I go back, the same place, the walking distance with the suit, with that kind of suit, is not the same. So I can end up here, or there.
Wow.
So even if you set some boundaries, maybe you are not in the position that you think you are.
Well, I think that some people are using the camera to do some very quick photogrammetry work to actually map.
Yeah.
So
that is something that I need to experiment with, because I've been mostly working with the Vive just because of the full body setup. But I love the inside-out tracking from the Odyssey. I think it's great.
For the Oculus Quest, you don't need a computer, and the tracking is even better than.
Actually, one thing that I hope will happen quite soon will be the integration of the 5G, meaning you can stream the data from the PC onto the Oculus Quest. And the Oculus Quest is something that I'm really eager to test with. Also because you are completely free, but then again, you are limited to a mobile setup.
Did you try the Santa Cruz?
No.
Oh, okay.
But
if you wanted to help.
I'm really curious to see what can be done with with future improvement. But for now, or at least for the market that I'm aiming towards, this setup that I'm using, especially for body studying for possible cause of accident or operator behavior, is quite effective. So, and Unreal, thank God for blueprints, it's been amazing, because what you see is something that can be done by anyone. The retargeting for the hands onto the mannequin, or what I've done, is something that I did with blueprints. I didn't invent anything new, but I was just trying to experiment, and also my main goal is to offer something more than the usual, here are the controllers, here's the HMD, that's it. So in order to offer something, I had to invest in some hardware and experiment for quite a while. So results, as of now, are quite good. I'm quite satisfied. So I'll keep experimenting until I have time, and I'll give up sleep.
Very quick note, for the collision issue, in case you can't use the camera, just use an Arduino with a sonar that's gives you information there's something in front of you.
That can be quickly integrated, just because you're pointing forward and you are able to do that. But for now, the motion capture suit, I'm basically using that for just experimenting. But for expanding the possibility of full body VR, I think I'm going to rely on the Lighthouse 2.0, just because you have a more freedom of range.
Yeah, and then you can put more sensors on
Exactly. Because my plan is to have like mainly a location-based entertainment setup where I can do design review with customer, or I can just let people play whatever it is.
But I think even at 2.0 you're limited to 10 meters by 10 meters because
Yeah.
you're going to put 4.
Yeah. I saw people that chain together like 16 of them, something like that, but it's basically to track the entire house.
Yeah, and the French rooms, they don't interfere with each other.
Exactly. For me, 10 meters by 10 meters is more than enough. I mean, you have lots of freedom of range, so yeah, unless you want to go run all
You did teleport all the world.
Exactly. So you don't have any kind of issue with that. So for me, that is the next step. So hopefully we'll see that happening in a couple of months. Maybe yes. Any more questions?
For smaller like customer houses and location, how much do you think that this setup is compatible with omnidirectional treadmills?
Okay. Thing is, the omnidirectional treadmill. Okay, they cost I think around 1K, 2K, something like that. So the price is not that affordable. And thing is, as of now, correct me if I'm wrong, but games that support that kind of locomotion are very, very few. So almost no one. So if you want to play with it, you need to also be a developer. So that for me is the main issue, because if you want to create like a game or a simulation or whatever it is that you want to do in your house, and basically present it to a customer, you can easily do that because you have the hardware, but you can also develop for that system. But if you are aiming to just use it just for fun, you're going to be disappointed, I think, because it's going to be used for very few games. So dedicated hardware is tough because you need to own it in order to play the game. As for the full body setup, if you don't have the Vive trackers, you cannot use the full body setup. You can use kind of, let's say, trick, meaning that you can simulate the upper body and the lower body is being driven by where you're moving. So the legs are doing the walking animation, but that is driven by the position that where you're at. So, I mean, you can invest in some hardware if you want to, or if you want to develop something for you in order to offer to a customer. Dedicated hardware can be the solution that you want to go. But of course, currently the prices for those are not that expensive. I mean, I've bought a couple of stuff during the last couple of years, and I mean, I didn't open a mortgage. I don't have a mortgage on those stuff. I just do some custom job and then buy what I needed. And that is what I'm also planning to do for the future, meaning that I'm not going to switch to Vicon or OptiTrack, because although they are my most perfect solution, but I don't need like a 50K tracking setup, while if I can use the technology made by Valve or by Vive, which works quite well. So I mean the scale of the project that I have in mind doesn't take into account a huge expense for the location, or let's say for the tracking technology, since I've been using the Vive trackers for the last year and a half, and I've been very satisfied with the results. Also because the accuracy is spot on, so quite satisfied. Any more questions? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, this is good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, who here actually been at Game Room yesterday? Okay, so it's gonna be a little bit repetition from yesterday, but with a few more examples, and hopefully I can get into more details. Okay, so quick recap. Anyway, so Epic keeps releasing free assets to use in the projects, like the Paragon assets, for example. You have all the characters and you can download them for free. All you have to do is go to the marketplace and then go to the free section at the top, and you're gonna find a long list of all the assets you can use. So now you have the Paragon assets as well. If you go way down, now this is a recording because I don't have internet connection, so just gonna show you. Okay. Yes, we have also the Soul Cave, which is also some assets you can use, environmental assets. At the bottom, you can find the car for the material pack for the McLaren car. And this one is the environment built for the iOS Metal API. It's called the Zen Garden. And finally, you have the Infinity Blade assets, and those assets are highly optimized for mobile use. And etc. The list like keeps going and going. Anyway, so the problem with those assets is they're optimized for different platforms. So you have the Kite demo, and it's made for cinematic, and cinematic usually is way heavier than consoles and PCs. The Paragon assets are made for console and high-end PCs. The Infinity Blade is made for mobile. So the problem is I keep seeing beginners taking Paragon assets or even taking assets from the Kite demo which are even heavier and use them in a project, and then they have sudden drop in frame rate. So the thing is, ideally what you want to do is take the Infinity Blade assets and they're optimized and use them in your games. But then what if you want to use the other assets? There are some ways you can optimize them directly inside of the engine, and I'm going to cover a few techniques. So first, I'm just going to open a project. I already prepared this one, but this map is actually taken from the starter content, and it's the advanced lighting map. It's a very simple map. There's nothing inside except for an HDR to send like proper lighting, and a directional light here at the top. Great. So I'm just going to start with the first example, which is LODs. Now, this route was taken from the Kite demo, and if you look at it, it looks really good, but if you look at it in wireframe mode, there's a lot of polygons, which is fine at this distance. To visualize if the number of polygons is ideal for you, all you have to do is go to the optimization view mode, and then check out quad overdraw. So, if it's blue, it means it's good, if it's white, it's bad. Now look, as I go further away from the object, it turns green. And it's because at the distance, there's a lot of polygons that I don't need, and they're taking a lot of rendering time. So there's a way to optimize it without actually losing the quality. And all you have to do is create LODs. And if you don't know what LODs is, it's basically replacing the mesh with a lower resolution one based on the distance. So to create an LOD, usually you want to export the object into a third-party software like Max or Maya or other programs. And then you have to edit the lower resolution version and re-import it. However, here inside of Unreal, it only takes a second, and all you have to do is go to the LOD group, and then you select a preset that is closest to the raw. So you have, for example, level architecture, small prop, large prop. So if I select the large prop, for example, because I think this is what fits most this asset, hit yes, and it's done. It just created some LODs. Now, to give you a small preview, this is the object now. And I'm just going to go slowly away from it. Okay. And right now you don't notice anything, but I just switched the mesh 3 times actually. So, if you want to see in wireframe mode, for example, it's more obvious. See the small pop here? It's switching between the 2 meshes. I can even look at the poly count here, so it's actually 15,000 triangles, now it's 7,000, and now it's 3,000. Right. Now, what if you want to change the settings of the LOD? Like I mentioned, you can select one of the presets here, but you can actually create your own preset as well. And all you have to do is just go here into the reduction settings, and you can tweak them. So maybe you just want to remove polygons up to 10% of the triangles. So you can just change the percentage and create a low resolution one. You just change this value and hit apply changes, and this is how you get it. Okay. So I just want to show you a side-by-side comparison, basically. I'm just going to keep this as is. And I'm just going to place both assets next to each other. So first, usually LODs happens automatically, so they're switching automatically based on distance. So I just want to lock a certain LOD level. So if I hit LOD in the search, I can force a certain level. So I just want to switch to the LOD model number 1, and here I'm going to go to the 3rd level, which is the lowest resolution one. Now if I put them side by side, you will notice that they look actually very similar, and barely there's any difference. If I look in wireframe mode, you can see this one has less polygons in it. And if I switch to the optimization view mode, both of them looks blue, which is good. But as I progress slowly and become further away from the object, one is turning green and the other one is still blue. Okay. Now, this is the lowest LOD setting, and in this case, we looked at the object actually looks really nice. There's no need to actually use the high resolution version at all. And that's because, like I mentioned before, this was made for cinematic purpose. For cinematic purpose, you want this extra super high resolution. In video games, you can get away with this quality. And they look pretty similar, so you're fine.
One question.
Yes.
I'm assuming that overlay, I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm assuming that overlay is for PC. If I want to do that overlay of optimization, if I want to know, okay, is this all right or not for mobile, for example, is the same or should I tweak something?
No, it's the same. So the difference between mobile and PC is how much the device is powerful and how many polygons it can handle. So, for example, if you're running this game on a PC, you can get away with 15,000 polygons. If you're running on mobile, then you might need to run it on like 3,000 polygons. So it just reduces the number of polygons based on how much the device is powerful. Now, if you're using a very old phone instead of the new phone, you have a different renderer. You have the deferred renderer and the forward renderer.
Yeah, basically that's my question because the blue meaning this is alright, I'm assuming that is for an average computer.
Yeah.
For mobile, you just told me a reference, but is this written somewhere or?
Yeah, so basically if you go to settings in rendering, you can actually change the rendering from shader 5 model to something else, like high-end mobile or mobile regular. And actually the view modes, if they're supported, they will actually change. Like for example, I've been running this in the forward renderer for my game, and I can tell you I have less polygons, but they're white. I'm not sure if I have time to open it. Sure, I can open some. I'm just gonna try to open a project just to give you an idea of if I know where I saved it. So this will take a few minutes because it's a very large project, but I'm using the forward render in this one. And you will see it's the same concept, however, the number of polygons that's supported is going to change which color it goes on. I guess I'm going to open the second one. Okay, in the meantime, while it opens, I'm just going to continue to the other examples. Okay, so the second one is material baking.
Oh, sorry, if you're switching to materials, I would also like to know that LOD switching, I know that exactly that's the way you do it for static meshes, but the question is how you do it for skeletal meshes.
You don't.
You don't?
Not yet, or it's about to come?
I don't know, to be honest. I know that for skeletal mesh it does not support it. I know there is support, like...
I know that Simplegon doesn't, but no, I thought that, sooner or later we also...
I mean, eventually, yeah, we start trying to close the gaps between... I know that Polycruncher works immediately on regular static mesh, but for skeletal mesh, I think you need to optimize it in another software.
DCC or whatever. Okay.
Yes, but I'm not sure, to be honest, if they've changed something in the last months.
No, I checked a couple of months ago and it wasn't yet, so I guess that still is not. Otherwise, I think the community is going to explode once that happens. So.
Probably. I mean, we're slowly replacing Simplegons. There are other tools I will show also later. So.
You still must do them if you want to have your game optimized, or you can get away with it without doing the LODs.
But skeletal mesh are much more complicated than static mesh. Okay, so I think the project open? No?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Suppose I'm making a mobile game and I want to use those big ass assets, they're very heavy.
Yeah.
But I don't want them in my project at all. Could I use the tool to just annihilate the original mesh and I have LOD 0 equivalent to that?
So all you have to do is go to the static mesh, and then if you go to the LOD picker, one second, not the LOD picker, then you go, numbers of LOD.
Okay.
So minimum LOD, right?
Okay.
What you can do is actually put this like on the number 3 and then, and you hit apply and automatically remove everything else. Let me check. There's an apply button somewhere.
On the bottom,
I think
Oh
we
yeah.
need to apply that.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it's already
Yes, just
Or-
in the.
Oh, maybe. Let me check. I don't really know. It's still here. So yes, usually just change this number.
or maybe I could export and re-import or something.
Usually it's that button, the apply changes.
Yeah, there is a button somewhere. But yeah, usually this is what I do. I just change this number and automatically it removes everything.
But does it have some kind of, performance hit on the game itself? Since you have, at the end you have the same mesh, just been optimized in real time inside the engine.
Yeah.
But in this case, you are basically discarding all the LODs and keep just one.
Yeah.
So Unreal sees it as just a single static mesh with that amount of triangles and doesn't take care of all the other LODs once you select, basically force the LOD. Or there's still the issue that you keep in the memory the LOD 1, 2, 3, and 4 while using just one.
Oh, found the button. It's remove LOD here. So all you have to do is like select the LOD you want, remove LOD. Let's say remove it. So if you wanna, except for the 0 one, you cannot remove it.
So the original mesh will be kept no matter what.
Yes, probably. But yeah, you can always just export it and re-import it. It's fine. Yeah. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, let's say that I'm prototyping for mobile.
Yeah.
And I have 4 LODs, but I just want to keep the LOD 4, which is the lowest one.
Yeah.
And I force LOD 4.
Yes.
Doesn't really keep into memory LOD 3, 2, and 1 and occupy memory, let's say, or it just takes into account LOD 4 because that's what is being used at the moment. Just to save memory, my question is.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know about that. That's like very how the engine renders exactly.
Yeah, just to know if that also occupies memory or is just a matter of say, okay, you can use LOD4 with, I don't know, 50 polygons and it's fine.
I mean, if you're not using it, better remove it because if not memory, you're saving storage.
Yeah, no, for me it's just a matter of when I need to prototype in mobile.
Yeah.
Better have the lowest amount of polygons possible and then pump up the amount of stuff that you have in it.
By the way, for someone like LOD0, a trick would be maybe just reduce the percent of triangles to like, I don't know, 15% and hit apply changes. And now the LOD0 is the lowest one, which is 15% of the polygon. And then you can remove everything else, all the LODs. Like so I go to LOD1, remove LOD. I mean, you get the point basically. I'm not going to do this because it's going to take some time, but yes, I just removed everything and kept the original. So everything about LOD you're going to find in this menu, there's nowhere else. Great. Now to the second example. And remember to close all the windows. I did that mistake yesterday and I ended up with like 24 open windows. And now it's complete. Anyway, so material baking. So just poly counts on its own is like one of the stuff that use performance, but there's also the material itself. And this is an example of a material taken from the car demo that I mentioned. And if we look at the optimization view mode, there's another one for shader complexity, which is how complex is your material. Green is good and red is bad. That's basically it. So this is red and it's bad. And now I'm just going to open the material itself to let you know why. Okay, so my computer is experiencing hiccups because I'm opening a second project in the background that's super mega heavy. And it's like 94%.
I'm sorry.
So, yes, you can blame this guy.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so this is a child material, so I'm just going to go to the parent. And, yeah. More hiccups.
Maybe
Yes, he did crash my computer.
Okay, out of time.
Oh, okay, so when you get this error, it means that the storage of your computer is full. So now if I open my hard disk and check, okay, because it crashed, it just have to empty my cycle.
So it's not video card memory.
What?
It's actual.
So when the card is full, it's gonna fill your hard drive.
Video card memory?
Or your RAM. Yeah, it's normal. Windows does that. So if you don't have enough RAM, it's gonna start using storage. And if you don't have enough storage, then it will crash. Now, in my defense, I only have 2 terabytes of storage.
But again, it is his fault.
Oh yeah, it's always his fault.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clear on that.
Okay. So maybe let's just leave that project for later, after the presentation, and then I can just show you the actual one. Great.
Interpretation. Italian, Russian.
Okay. Great. So back to the material. If we go back to the child material and then go back to the parent, this is actually the material. Now I know it looks complex, but it's actually very, very simple, and the only reason why it looks this big is because they actually expose so many materials for you to tweak. So, you know, even the UVs you can tweak. So imagine every node here is just a parameter connected to something. That's basically why it's that large. And to be honest, the material is not that heavy. But what I did was I added a noise node, which is the heaviest material right now in the material editor, I think. It's one of the heaviest at least. And I added it here just to like add a few instructions. So now it's like 291 instructions. So even in the noise node, you can actually pick this one, and the gradient is also the heaviest one between all the noise examples. And what it does is actually very interesting. It combined the purple, or is it blue? This blue with the same type of blue. So you don't see any difference, but it's supposed to create this random variation. If you want, I can just maybe turn it into red so you get an idea of what it's doing. Just give it a few seconds. And no, it doesn't crash.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
See this? It means your leather needs cleaning. Or you killed someone. Anyway, so a simple way to actually do this is basically you don't have to calculate the noise each time. It's not something dynamic. It's a static texture. So you can actually bake it. You can calculate it once, save it as a texture, and use that instead. Now, as a first step, I want to show you how you can bake out the entire material and just turn it into 3 to 4 textures. So right now, if you look here, we're using the base color, the specular, the roughness, and the normal now. So, basically, to bake a material, all you have to do is go to the static mesh. And then there's a button here called Bake Out Materials. Now, this static mesh actually has 3 materials. So if I hit Bake Out Materials, it's going to be all 3. So to make it much simpler, I'm just going to apply the material to an object that only has a single material, so I only have to bake that one. If you don't have an object, all you have to do is drag a sphere into the scene, and then right-click and convert it into a static mesh. And I'm going to save it as a sphere. And I'm going to hit OK. It's actually now in the low-res folder, and here it is. Great. So just copy-paste the material. So copy, and then paste, and here you go. Now when you hit Bake Out Material, all you have to do is select those settings. So what's the type of the material? By default it's opaque, and that's the one we want to use. And then which textures you want to bake. So you want to bake the diffuse, and then the specular, and the roughness, and the normal map. And as for the resolution, it's going to be 200. hit confirm, and you just wait for a second. Now, if you look at the top, usually this button indicates if the engine is like running or frozen. Since it's animating, it means it's already done, or not. Did I hit compile? So try that.
You have to apply.
I just want to check if it actually created an item. Cancel this stuff. No, it is here. But, oh. Okay. Oh, sorry, yeah, it was in front of me, but I didn't see it. Great, anyway. So, just gonna create a new material now, and I'm gonna call it perforated. So, just going to select all four textures just bake. Okay, so the blue one usually is the normal map, and the colored one is the base color. As for those two, well, it's very hard for me to know which one is which, so I'm just going to double click and then read the name, which is the specular one, and the roughness. And always remember to organize your mesh, your material, because it's going to just take more time, but it looks better.
Is there any particular reason why you're using the red channel instead of the hole?
No. Usually, in textures, okay. So, for the specular, it's a black and white image.
Correct.
If I zoom in, you can see it's black and white, right? So, in black and white, usually the red, the green, and the blue have the same image. It's absolutely the same image. So, you can use any of the three.
I mean, but my question is if there is an advantage on only connecting a red channel instead of the hole.
I mean, you can connect this one, but the specular usually takes black and white values. So if you connect the third one, then it's just gonna be like, which one should I pick? You're just like, it's just a safe side. You know?
Okay.
I mean, you're gonna get the same result, but imagine this: what if the red, green, and blue have different images inside?
I know that's a different story.
Yeah. So just in case, I always use like, okay, it's a single channel, so it should use a single channel. Great, so now you hit apply, and then if you look at the stats, by the way, you also have the platform stats, which shows you different stats for each platform. So you can see how heavy the material is on mobile and how heavy it is on PC. It's 116 instructions. If you remember the original one, it used to be 291. So we cut them by way more than half, actually. Great, so you have the materials, and I want to place them side by side so you can see like what's the difference, actually. So I'm just going to copy paste this one, and then apply the new material just created here. And from this angle, they look absolutely the same. But if you look at the optimization view mode and shader complexity, one is completely green, and the second one is red. So, what did we lose actually? I mean, we optimized it a lot. So one, it's basically those here. See the black points? They're actually occluding. Like as I move, they look like yeah, like the ring is moving. Like this yellow part is actually gonna be hidden, and it gives the illusion that there's actually a hole inside of the letter. Well, in this case, it doesn't. It's always like a flat image. And the reason behind that is because when we bake the original material here, we also bake something called the parallax occlusion. Not this one. This one. The parallax occlusion was actually baked as well. And that's what created the issue. So, what you want to do instead is actually bake out the noise, just the noise. So I can connect it to anything that I'm like using, like the emissive color, for example. And then I go back to the sphere, and I'm just going to reselect the material because it automatically changed it. Copy, go back to the sphere, hit paste. Bake out the material, but this time, instead of the diffuse color, I want to bake the emissive ones. Hit confirm, and then it should also take a second.
You didn't apply, does it still work?
I'm sorry?
You didn't hit apply, did you?
No, I did the confirm. You don't apply it for something else.
I mean the material, in the material change.
Yes.
It's going to be black. Yeah.
It shouldn't be though. It's not black, it's... Why is it so small though? Did I hit the wrong... Oh, you mean the material? Okay, no, now I get it. Sorry. Sorry. Yes, so the material itself. Yeah, apply. Yes. This happens live.
Well, of course, it's a
Common mistake. Okay.
Okay, now we hit apply and then we wait for 128 shaders to compile.
We have a question. Yeah. Can you bake like a metallic specular into one texture?
No. Not in this menu. I mean, you have to do it manually. You check if there's a setting for that. It would be nice if there was.
Actually, I know because I've been using that for quite a lot. If you use the merge actor tool, you also have the possibility to bake basically everything.
Yes.
In fact, that's what I was using, and I wasn't not aware of this function. So
Yes, so the merge actor is the example later I'm going to explain.
okay.
So that one, yes, it does merge, but this technique for the material, it does not.
But actually, it does work pretty nicely with detailing, because with the merge tool, I always love the machine with detailing, which looks quite bad. So I'm also looking forward for the merge tool example.
And confirm, it should be done this time, but it's not. Oh wait, there's two now. And the answer is none of the above. Okay, one last time. And if that doesn't work, we can always like bake other stuff as well.
Vabbè, però vabbè, ma dai.
That's going to connect the same node into something else, like the metallic. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions on? Yes.
I have a question about the shader complexity debugging. Because I think the main capsules the class and the head-up display, one is just a material. When I switched to shader complexity, the single material was green, but when they overlapped in the final mesh, they look like very bad, almost red. Is that just because the material is translucent and it's making them, it's summing them up, or I don't know?
Could you just repeat what you did at the beginning?
If I get my material,
Yes.
like a single material, it gets green. It gets green when I enable the shader complexity, so it looks like it's good.
Okay. Yes.
If I overlap them, since they are all translucent, it looks like they are very bad. Is it real or just?
No, it's real. It's because translucent means you're seeing a material on top of another material. So it's not just rendering this one, it's you're seeing this one plus that one.
Alright.
That's why
that's a problem I have to fix.
Yeah, but I mean, red is not always bad. White is super mega bad. No,
Okay.
it's acceptable to have red in some part on the screen. I mean, not your entire screen should look green. Only optimize if you have a drop in performance.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. One last time, and this time I'm gonna use a metallic and an emissive. And a diffuse just in case. Yes.
Yes, kind of silly question, but I'll ask you anyway.
So here it is.
Can you bake transparency?
No.
No. Okay.
You can bake the opacity mask, if that's what you mean.
Okay, so just the, I mean, if I do the trick of baking the opacity mask and use as a kind of translucency, should it work? I mean,
Yeah, I guess. So I think
extreme example would be to bake the map for a glass. It won't work, or it would work.
Is it not just a flat number?
yeah, it's just flattening all the nodes into an image.
Okay.
It should work.
I never tried it, was just curious about it.
I guess it was an issue with the emissive because that's the noise texture, we just baked it into a color. And that's basically all I have to do is just drag this one. So I can take that noise node here and then go back to the original material, which we messed up a lot. Yes. Okay, and then I'm just going to remove the emissive, the metallic. And then take this one here and replace the noise. Now, of course, the noise is already tiled, 512, I think, or something, which is fine. But here we go. Anyway, so in short, it becomes 128 instructions. So you just reduced 291 to 128 and kept the noise. I'm just gonna switch now to. You just have to adjust the tiling to get actually just the correct size. Level. Okay, so geometry grouping. So you mentioned before the merge actors, and there's multiple techniques to actually merge actors. So one of them is, imagine you have like 4 rocks and they're different, right? So this is also from the kite demo. And I want to create a pile of rocks. So I can take all 4 and I'm just going to create a couple of copies of it. And then after the couple of copies, I'm going to create a dozen. And after a dozen, I'm going to create a few hundred. Okay. So I'm just going to randomize it with the size. So I'm just going to select some of them, rotate it a bit. And then maybe scale it. Okay, great. And then make more copies of those.
All of them.
You want to grab all of them?
Rotate all of them together under Google.
Sure, we can do that.
Oh yes. Do it. Okay.
This is getting weird. Right. Now I'm going to unrotate them. And the thing is, you can have as many rocks as you want. Who wants a rock? So, yeah, I guess we have enough. You can never have enough rocks, but sure. So I'm just going to go to the word outliner and select them all. And I selected 48 rocks. Now to create the pile of rocks, all you have to do is hit simulate. So I just want to mention to the end that you need to simulate physics, and then you hit play, and wait for a few seconds. Great, they all fall down, and I didn't actually get a pile because they fell way in the distance. So a small tweak would be one, to actually place those rocks on top of the other ones. There we go. And the second tweak, I'm just going to increase the friction. So that way when they fall, they don't actually automatically just bounce off. And to that you have to change the damping to 1. Now, when you hit simulate, they actually stay, kind of, a little bit. And if that doesn't work, just select everything and make some more rocks. There we go. Now we hit simulate. Okay, this file should be enough. Now, if you want to keep the simulation change, all you have to do is hit the K key on the keyboard. And now when I hit stop, some of them actually stay and the rest actually, because I didn't select all of them, I have to reselect all the rocks. Okay, so you have to actually select all the rocks here. And hit the K key. Great, now when I hit stop, they're still here. Great. So, that's good, you have a nice pile of rocks, but the problem is we have around 100, and you're paying the cost of 100 mesh, while you can pay the cost of only 1. So, usually you could actually just convert the selected actors into a static mesh, but what this is going to do is create basically one mesh with 101 materials, even though it's a copy-paste of the other ones. So, another technique would be to use the merge actors. And this one would actually combine all the materials of the same type in one. So if you hit merge, and go into low res, I'm just going to name it pile of rocks. Hit save, and now I'm just going to wait a few seconds to open the file. Okay, great. So now I can put them side by side, and it's exactly the same, well, rocks. But the difference here is one is only a one static mesh, and the other one's like multiple. I can right click and group them, so I don't have to select them each time. But if I select the one you just created, you can see that it has already 4 materials. So that's something sometimes you want to keep in case the materials are dynamic and you don't want to bake them. But what if the materials are static, like this one? You can actually bake all 4 into a single one. And to do so is also simple. Same menu, but we have to change one setting. So we go to the merge actors, and then we go to, first we have to select which LOD to use. So you want to use the LOD 0, and then hit merge materials. Now if I go to the low res, I can name it static pile of rocks. And this will also take a couple of seconds as well, and should be done basically. I like how it says 100%, giving like a false sense of accomplishment, but then like, no, but wait 2 minutes.
I look pretty great.
Okay, so here's a small accident. You know when we group the mesh, we might have grouped the platform with it. So now we have a pile of rocks and a platform. Yeah, I'm just gonna ungroup and regroup. There we go. And then now it's grouped again, and we have to remerge because. Okay, great. Good. So now basically we have the pile of rocks that's merged, and I'm just going to place them side by side. And you can compare. So if you click on this mesh, you will see that only has a single material. And what it did was it actually baked all 4 materials into a single one. See, this is the first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth. And it's created an atlas of that. Now, the only drawback is basically you lost some resolution. So if you want to compare the rocks next to each other, the problem is you have to be close by. Which one is which? Okay, here we go. So, one of them should have more resolution than the other. I'm not going to tell you which, you still have to guess. And basically when we baked all the textures, we lost some resolution because one, we're using 4 textures and then taking the space of 1. And the second is because we have baked the detail texture. So a detail texture is basically when you take a smaller size texture and you tile it on top of the bigger one to add more details on top. So if I go back to the original material, the parent one of those rocks, here, you can actually see that for the diffuse, for example, this is the diffuse texture, and I combine it with a smaller texture that adds more detail on top. So when I baked it, I actually don't have anything tiling on top. Now, luckily for us, in this example particularly, all 4 rocks are using the same parent. So if you look here, basically, it's a different texture, but it's the same parent. And meaning for us that we can actually just create a copy of that. Just going to create a copy of the child. And called MI. Here we go. And all I have to do this time is just replace the textures here by the one just created. So we name them pile of rocks. And it's actually the second one, here's the diffuse one. And that is the normal one. One setting that I need to tweak though is the brightness. Because we already brightened the texture, so we don't want to brighten it again when we baked. Okay, and now I'm just going to apply the new material next to the old one. So, this is the grouped one here. Just gonna place that one here, and I'm just gonna apply the new material we created instead. As you can see, we regained some type of details here at the bottom. And it's still the exact same texture. So basically what we did was we created a new asset. It has multiple rocks. It's a single mesh, single material, and we kept the original parent material and all the parameters. And you can use it now in the scene, and it's very optimized. So, okay, now on to the next example, and this one is actually quite fast. It's called instancing. So there was a game that I saw recently. Someone had an asteroid field in this game, like multiple rocks. I'm not sure where I saw it though. Anyway, yeah. So you can actually, instead of being able to add multiple rocks in the scene, like usually you have something called a draw call. And a draw call is basically, rendering on a graphic card is really fast, but I've never seen this happening on the graphic card. And there's one step where the CPU actually has to take that static mesh and send it to the graphic card. And that step is very slow. So imagine you have 100 rock in the scene, and they're the same type of rock. So the actual CPU has to load it 100 times and send it to the GPU. If you mark it as instance, what's going to happen is only going to send it once, and like, you know what? Take that object and copy it. I'm not going to send it anymore. And yeah, basically, instead of being able to just put 100 rock in your scene, you can put thousands, even like a million. And so I took this rock and I placed it in the scene. And now I'm just going to convert it into an instance. So I'm going to go back to the same menu, the Merge Actors menu. But this time, I'm just going to go to the last tab, and this is where you can actually combine all instances. If you hit Merge, that's it. What it did right now in this second, it actually hid all the objects that I added to the scene, and it replaced them with a single one called Actors. And this actor is just, it grouped all the actors together. So how can you see draw calls? There's a command called RHI. So I'm just going to tab state RHI. But can we take a moment to appreciate that I have a tilde key on my keyboard? I mean, something that I don't see on most Italian keyboards. Okay. So if you look at the draw call right now, it's 592. That's because we're using instance. But if I turn off the mesh, see, we don't have any mesh here. I'm just going to re-enable the old ones we have. And now it jumped all the way to 910. So this is basically how we use the draw calls by use instance. So again, I'm going to turn it off and enable the new one, and now get back to 590. So there's at least a difference in 200 draw calls.
Let me ask you one thing about it.
Yes.
The actor that has been created is something that is not saved within a folder. It's something that exists just in the scene.
Yes.
So you cannot select each rock and move it, right?
No, and that's like one of the stuff I wanted to mention now. Right? So yes, that is a drawback of using instances. And the thing is, once you create an instance, all the object cannot be moved. And even if it's an actor in the blueprint, you still cannot move it. Because instances are sent as a single object with a location and a scale, and that's it. They don't have any properties.
That's fixed, that's it.
Yes. So what if you want to, for example, like one of them to actually move? It's not like use this one or that one. You can actually use a combination. And what you can do basically is, like, whenever you hit one of them, just destroy it and replace it with an actual static mesh.
So you can access the index?
Yes, you can access the index.
Okay.
So you can have like the entire asteroid field being made of instances, and that one rock you hit, you can destroy it, replace it with a static mesh, simulate physics, and make it like bounce to somewhere else. And that's basically how you do it.
If you press play on that, if you press play in that scene right now, the other rocks will appear.
No. They don't. They should. I didn't. Yes.
With the foliage tool, you can actually click and move instance of static mesh.
Yes.
That's not, that's out of the question for this tool, right?
Well, yes and no. So what it's doing actually in the static mesh, you know, when you add the first instance, you get to keep that location. Okay? So what it's doing is basically destroying that instance and putting another ones in your location, you know, that's essentially. But once you place them eventually and you package the game, you cannot move it. Unless what you can do actually, in the material itself, you can do a vertex offset, but you're not moving the collision, you're actually moving this. And there's a parameter called randomize per instance ID.
Yeah, for instance, random.
Yes, so you can actually like randomize the materials, so each rock will look completely different, even though they are instances, because the shader changes based on that parameter. Okay, and finally to the last example, and this I'm going to combine all the techniques in one, basically. And so I took an asset from Paragon, and this asset is very heavy. What I mean by heavy, it has a lot of polygons, it has a lot of materials, and the materials are heavy, and it's made out of multiple assets. So it's like all of the above. And just to give you an idea, if you want to go into the viewport optimization here, there's shader complexity, there's quad overdraw, and there's one to see both. And it's red. The material is red, the poly count is red. So what can we do? There's a new tool, and it's basically, usually you need to use a third-party tool that merges everything together into a single mesh, like Simpligon. We created our own tool inside the engine, so you don't have to buy that and just use the one we have. And yeah, it's basically what it does See the static mesh is actually made out of 3 meshes. This one, the one at the top, and the one in the back. So that's 3 meshes. And if you look on the inside, there are some polygons basically that basically we don't see, but they exist. And just to even make it easier for you, I'm just going to take this sphere and put it on the inside here. And now if you look, take a look. Oh, actually you can see it from the other side. So there you go. It's actually hidden. So this sphere, you never see it in the game, like never, because it usually has collision. The player is not going to stick his head inside of a wall. So this tool actually not only optimizes the mesh, but remove faces that you don't see. So what I'm going to do is select all 4 meshes, right click and go back to the merge actor because there's another tool I can use there. And this one is called proxy mesh tool. It only takes a few parameters. One, what's the resolution I want to see? What is the screen size? How much space it occupies on the screen? So, you know, this is a screen that's almost full HD. It's actually less, but assume it's full HD screen. So, you know, we have like 1,920 pixels in diagonal. In horizontal. So this section is around, I don't know, I would say 200 pixels or so. So it's like 200 by 300, and that's how you can get an idea of what's the screen size. So in the distance, I don't think even I need 300, I can put it like 200. Now, the material setting asks me what's the resolution, so I'm just gonna put 2K. And which map do I want to bake? So I just want to bake the normal map, the roughness, the specular, and that's it. The diffuse is already being baked by default. And now you hit merge actor. Now I'm gonna be honest, this usually takes some time. So I can hit it if you want to, but what I can do is basically show you something that's already done, then maybe give you a quick recap, and I can hit merge during the question, so that's more fancy. So if I take the low res, this is the already existing mesh. And as you can see, they actually look identical from this distance. And as if I get closer, they still look identical. But look here at the detail, and that's the only difference actually. From the other side, it's more dependent. See, you can see here the green, here it's more blurred. But there are no sphere inside of this object. There's no internal polygons. Remember that polygon here we had, if I look on the inside, it doesn't exist anymore. And those 3 assets, they're actually merged. Like it combined those 2 meshes here. So what it did was, it created like a new topology of the entire mesh. It's like imagine enveloping the entire mesh with one, and it got that. Now, I've used this for this example, and also quick note, this is around 30,000 polygons. The new one is 1.6. So you literally like reduce it to almost 5% polygon. Anyway, I can even show you. Just to make sure. Yes, so it's like 1.6 just for this piece. While this one, if you just take the 8 on its own, it's around 16. And if you take that piece here at the top, it's actually 11,000.
You can put the what view, the wireframe view to see them by side.
I can put
the wireframe view.
Oh yeah, sure, of course. So, here you go. One is red, one is green. It's simple. And in the distance, they're red. Now edit it with white for a second. Anyway. Now I'm just gonna make a quick recap because I mentioned a lot of tools, and just so you don't forget them all. Okay, so first the LOD. It's basically creating a same mesh, different polygon count, and based on the distance, you swap between both. And that's very useful, usually basically everywhere. Only takes a click anyway, so why not? It's extra optimization for your game. The second one is how to bake material. just make sure not to bake everything in your scene, just profile, see which one is heavy, and instead of baking the entire material, look for the heavy node and bake that. Because it's not flexible to modify just those 4 textures, but this one you have access to all those parameters. How to combine multiple meshes, especially if they're sharing some materials, and when to combine them. You can use the merge actors, and you can actually combine the materials. For example, you can bake 4 materials into a single one by creating an atlas. Or you can keep all 4, for example, but this is more efficient in case it's the same rock repeating multiple times. And there's instancing, and this tool is also used in foliage. So if you're using foliage on a terrain, it's already instanced by default. You don't have to actually use this one. But for other stuff like the rocks example I just showed, you have to use it. You can also access it from Blueprint. There's a component called instance.mesh, so you can dynamically add more instances. And finally, this tool. And while I use it for this mesh, I can give you an example of how we're using it in Fortnite, for example. So, you notice cities in Fortnite way in the background when they're like really far. There's no point of rendering the entire city. So what they do usually is they take all the buildings and they use this tool, and what it does, one, it closes all the windows, and second, it removes all the inside. So not only it's just reducing the poly count, but it's also removing all the parts you don't see. And an entire city that can be like 100K polygons can become 1K.
I have one question about a specific topic, because I'm assuming that that happens on the client side.
Okay.
Right? On the server, do you render all, because I'm fairly new, but I really want to get into multiplayer games.
Yeah.
In the server side, how do you handle that? Because the server must know where everybody is and what everybody is doing exactly.
Right, so just for the record, I don't think this question is related to this presentation, but so you're talking about a networking question, and the server doesn't care about graphics. So if it's a dedicated server, it only needs info. It needs the vector location of the players, which variables to replicate, and everything else.
Okay.
But for the rendering, I mean, why would the server want to know if the wall actually looks good or not? He doesn't care, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I figured, but I wanted to know for sure.
Yes. However, there's one particular case where the server is not the dedicated server. There's the active server, basically, where the player, like instead of having the server on a second computer, it's the same one running your game, and their friends are connecting to you. So in that case, it's actually rendering your game, and at the same time, it's doing the calculation.
Okay.
So it's more like the server and the client are on the same computer, if you want. So usually, yes, the server will never actually calculate the graphics.
Okay. In that case, when one of the players is the server also, then the computer will only take into account the physical locations of the other player.
Yes.
Ah, okay, okay.
And what's rendering is just basically what you see, the player is playing. Yeah. Okay. I think.
Let me ask you just one quick question.
Yes.
I'm not sure if there is a difference between them, but if you're using instancing, or if you group together the mesh and use the merge tool, I know that for the merge tool, if you have like objects scattered around, if you see one of the objects which is the group, let's say the single mesh, which takes care of getting all the mesh, basically you see all the polygons. While with instancing, the mesh you see is the polygons that you see are just the instance. So the question is, with instance, you see if you have like scattered around like 200 lampposts, if you see just one, you see just the polygons for build that one. But if you have everything merged together, if you see just one lamppost, you see basically the entirety of the polygons.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, that's definitely true. And the thing is, yeah, that's one of the stuff when you consider you have to split it. And I'm just going to give an example on the game I'm working, which is the castle. Because, you know, the castle is a large structure, and I can actually turn it into a single piece.
Okay, but
imagine I'm looking at the corner of the castle. I just loaded an entire castle into my game. So you have to cut it, but there's a use for that, because LODs are not, there's an advanced topic on LODs called hierarchical LODs.
Okay.
So it's basically on the distance, it will group LODs, but on a close-up, it will only see one mesh. So based on the distance, you can say those 3 meshes will actually merge, will be loaded together, and then when you close up, only that piece.
But that is done prior. I mean, the merging is done prior, or it's in real time.
Both, actually. It's like there's automatically generated ones that you can tweak them, and it's I think, okay, I'm not sure, but let me check. I think it's window, developer content, and then there's like, this is going to be interesting. Okay, yeah. Outliner. So you can actually group multiple LEDs here, and like in the scene, you can select multiple meshes, you know. And you can select, like in the distance, I want those three meshes to be one piece. Well, however, in the close-up, no, I want it to be the exact same mesh and be whatever number of pieces I want. Okay. And yeah, and for instance, yes, this is because it's always going to send the mesh. So if you see a group of them, you're going to render all of them. But even in the rendering, it doesn't like render all the polygons. It renders like the rock you see in front of you.
You're seeing right now.
Yeah, and half the rocks you see on the side. You know, even rendering is more optimized.
Okay.
You know, so.
Because I mean, I haven't been using merging and instancing recently, so I didn't know that. Because I know that before you had the issue that if you are looking just at one thing, everything else would be rendered, or you're going to load the entire mesh basically. So the instancing is a little bit different and much more usable. Great.
Okay, so yes.
Do you do
more
tutorials on YouTube?
Do you mean if this talk is available on YouTube or tutorials in general?
In general.
Yes, so all you have to do is go to Unreal Engine YouTube channel, the official one. And we have classes, we have lectures, we have presentations, we have tutorials, we have everything you want. Just go to the playlist section and you're going to find like actual courses. And there's also Unreal Academy, which is an independent website also for Unreal Engine that also have more courses. Like on real-time rendering, I always recommend that course, but there are also introduction course, how to use source control, how to work with a team, all of the above. So yeah.
Sorry, respect the example you do with the baking of the material. It's possible to export the material plus the received shadow on top of it. Like if I want to export the render table, first question, can I export with the received shadow so I have the bake?
You can, yes, but not in this. But let me check.
Not
actually not this method, but it is possible inside of the engine. So usually we hit bake out and you have, you know, the textures here. You have the ambient occlusion, reflection, that's basically noise, it's just baking the material. But there's a way that, to be honest, like, it's not the ideal way, but it's hidden. So if you go to show engine content, okay? And inside of the engine content, there's actually a blueprint called, I think it's called Bake. It's render texture. I'm just gonna hit the blueprint class and call it render. Here we go. Render texture game. Okay. So okay, it's see those blueprints. They're written inside the engine. What they will do actually, they will take. This takes a second to actually load. Okay, you don't have to see this piece of code. It's just like, it's already written for you. All you have to do is use it. So what you do is basically you drop it here inside of the scene. Okay, and now if you look at the settings here, you can actually say, I want to render the material. I want to render a 3D imposter, depth map, light maps, you know? And basically here, you have to select the material you want to bake and the object and everything else. And in this case, yes, it can bake the shadows and everything else.
So, second question, can you export then this texture like a JPEG or TGA, what you want, plus the OBJ or FBX file?
Yeah, so usually it bakes it into a TGA, you can export it. To export the texture, you have to use right click, and then asset actions, you know, and then export to save it. But to be honest, if you want to bake shadows, maybe it's better for you to use like V-Ray and 3D Max. I mean, I experimented with still, it's good, but for the particular case you're mentioning where you have to bake the light map. But the thing is, you can always bake light maps in for the static meshes. If you have static meshes, all you have to do is hit build on top, and it will actually bake the shadows onto the object. But you cannot export them, that's the only difference. Yes. Yeah, so use whichever is convenient. Like you can do it in the engine. I personally prefer like use 3D Max. Some people use something called Knoll. Apparently it's faster. Knoll.
Knoll.
Yes. That's apparently for some people can use Substance as well. So depends which tool you're comfortable with. But yeah.
Thank you.
I have a game where I have really long tunnels using splines. How will you approach to optimize that? Like really long tunnels?
Build shorter ones.
Huh?
Build shorter tunnels.
Which build?
Build shorter tunnels.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. How do you optimize long tunnels?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a spline.
Yeah, but it's actually
a
a mesh repeating, right?
So that's what I mean. But it has like a because we're kind of thinking in sort of like a F-Zero thing. You just go on the tube and you just go around the tube, avoiding targets and stuff like that. So the thing is that we wanted the tube not just be a single line. It has like different steps, different shapes. So what you're saying is to cut it and to stick it, something like that.
Yeah, like usually spline it's a repeating mesh over time, right?
Yes.
And you can make it as a blueprint. So basically use instance, like instancing for those pieces. And you can also each like certain distance repeat a certain mesh. Like you can even in the blueprint add lights, and then you can add some lamppost on the tunnel, and then some grass and everything. In the blueprint it can be dynamic. And then all you have to do is expand that spline, and automatically it just create that tunnel for you. And
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing. But I don't know if I have really long tunnels, since it's one single thing, it will.
It's not an issue. I mean, are you having performance issues?
Well, but because I'm on mobile, we were trying to see if we could fit that into mobile. Yeah.
Yeah, but does it run on mobile? I mean, if it's running well, then there's no problem with that. And the question is the performance actually coming from the tunnel itself? Maybe it's something else in your scene.
Well, that's the thing that I after seeing all of this, I'm going to apply all of those, but I'm not entirely sure if the tunnel was also a problem.
There's one tool that I didn't show was the GPU profiler. So it's like you hit Control, Shift, and a comma, and it opens a menu for you, and it shows you exactly like this is where your performance is going. So you're losing this amount of milliseconds running on that type of profiler. I would have given more talk about that, but I think we're already like 15 minutes behind.
Sorry.
Yes. So, it exists. Profiler. It will let you know where you're losing milliseconds. Is it rendering? Is it the lights? Is it the post processing? So based on that, you can actually see, and then you need to fix this and that. Okay. Any more questions?
Quick one. You talk about a lot of optimization, but how you basically manage to keep the consistency between lighting from baked objects to real-time lighting objects? Because I saw a lot of people complain about the fact that once the light is baked, and when you have the door looks like crap.
Well, yes and no. The thing is, we've made a lot of modification to the engine, and especially in the last few months, like lighting, the baked lighting is getting better and better. Like it's becoming more realistic. At some point, even like the static one looks better than the dynamic one. And yes, okay. So they don't look the same always. And a simple trick you can do is, not a trick, just open the YouTube channel and look for the lighting guide by Tim Hobson. He created 2 videos on YouTube and an actual written guide, so whichever you prefer. If you prefer reading, look for his lighting guide. If not, look on YouTube. One stream is about static lighting and all the issues you're going to face and how to tweak it to actually get the results you want. And the second one is about dynamic lighting and how to do it. Like at some point they were like, okay, we need dynamic lighting, we can't afford it. They did a post-process where they changed the brightness of the scene. And when you enter that volume, like change.
What's the name, sorry? Can you repeat the name?
A post-process? Oh, the
video.
Yeah, it's just a lighting guide. Look on the Unreal Engine official channel. Look for lighting. You're gonna find like 2 live streams, one for dynamic, one for static. And the person talking about this is Tim Hobson, and he was being interviewed by Alexander Pascal. Tim Hobson is basically someone who he has written a lot of the documentation and very useful guides on Unreal. So I think he even has a website you can check out with all the guides. I would highly recommend. Because what he does, he writes all the frequently asked questions that everyone asks. Like, trust me, everyone asks this. Like, how can I fix the UVs? There's always, every day, someone on Answer Hub asking why do like the shadow looks bad on my mesh, and then it's like, fix the UVs. That's always the same answer. And they don't Google. I would say
yeah, I
just
know.
Google the question first. Yeah. Good? Awesome. Thank you.
In Radio Games Room, probably will hear the same thing, but half of the people haven't. So, where's
So yeah, I'm from Epic Games, and thank you very much everybody for coming here on such a short notice on Saturday weekend. I know that everybody would like to be somewhere else maybe. So my name is Milena Koljensic. I'm from Serbia, but I live in Prague right now. I'll be relocating to Guildford, where I'll be working with Epic Games as a field marketing manager. So these are my contact details. You can find me on Twitter. You can email me if you have some additional questions later on. I have been in the game industry for some quite time. I started as a video game screenwriter. What is actually a video game screenwriter, right? Does it even exist? I finished the school screenwriting university, so I loved always to play video games. So I decided to try my career in video games, writing narratives and stories, and making up, game design and levels for different studios, smaller studios, indies. When I saw that I was good at pitching those ideas to publishers, I understood that I can go to marketing and PR. So, which led me to work in a bigger companies such as Warhorse Studios on a game Kingdom Come Delivered, RPG game, maybe you heard about it, and I was also working for Microsoft. Right now, I'm still currently teaching at a game development school at Charles University a course how to pitch your game ideas to investors. And my main expertise is like marketing and business development. I did take a lot of, I worked with a lot of projects as freelancers from all around Europe and different fields. And right now at Epic, my main goal is to actually support indie developers and develop, it doesn't even matter which size of indie of the studio it is, but support them with marketing and giving them opportunity to gain a bigger visibility and in the world, and also create a bigger awareness of their project. So, of course, we all know what Epic Games is, right? So this is a very short overview. Epic Games was only established, 27 years ago? I'm 1992, so... and it's relatively still a very small company, and the headquarters are in Cary, North Carolina. We have 16 offices. Right now we're also opening some new offices in Europe. It's still privately owned, so which means that I think it's amazing. You know who Tim Sweeney is, so he's like kind of one of those geeks developers, you know, still working with games and not staying in the company. So that's kind of very inspiring to be in this kind of a family-like environment. And about Unreal Engine, I'm sure you heard even way more than I did. After Joseph's talk, Unreal Engine, we have 100 AAA games made with Unreal Engine. And Unreal Engine 4 was launched in 2014, went free in 2015. It has more than 5 million users, and it's completely amazing, of course. But when I say AAA games, I don't want you to feel scared that Unreal Engine is only for big studios. It's not. So I've witnessed myself that small studios can use Unreal Engine to build epic things. I hope that this video is going to work. No, it's not. But this game was made by just one person. It's called The Lost Soul Aside by a Korean developer. So, and there are a lot of other, not exceptions, but actually right now this is not an exception anymore. This is a very common thing. A lot of small studios can build this kind of an amazing, graphically stunning visual games just in small teams. Regarding the developer success itself, where I, as a field marketing manager in Epic, as a company, can help developers, is that we help you connect with the publishers, we help you connect with the investors. So we're trying to, when we see a developer, we try to understand what are their needs. Do they need funding? Do they need help with the marketing? Do they need just advices on the game? And we're really very easy to reach out to. I mean, after all, we're here right now, we're in a game room, we're everywhere. Our team is expanding, so right now we're aiming to have around 6 evangelists, technical evangelists in Europe. So we should cover the whole world, which is like the whole Europe and let's say Middle East, where Jesus comes from. So it's I think a very important thing what we're doing with this to support developers who are struggling with creating the right pitch decks and getting the right connections. We're also, as you know, we have released a lot of free content from our previous games, like from Paragon and Blade Assets. We around 1,500 environment components which are free, so you can use that to build your own games. We're creating workshops, meetups, we have trainings, we're participating in different conferences. The conferences I, for example, participated in with my team in this past 2.5 months were mainly we were visiting 6-7 countries, so we did a lot of help and a lot of marketing for developers. Usually our kind of main stuff that we do, we have this promotion, co-marketing, we have a blog, and our own blog, we do showcase features, we're on YouTube, Twitch, we're on Instagram, all social media, of course. We also celebrate developers, so this is a quite recent blog which I wrote after our road trip, where I named a lot of developers, also from Italian developers, like for example Storm in a Teacup, where we kind of celebrated the achievements. So we tried to, through blog, which is a US blog, which gained the biggest amount of impressions, and try to get those people to go to the links and check our developers' games. So we do that monthly. I personally do it, and we also have Unreal Dev Grants, which you can apply. It's a 5 million fund founded in February 2015. Again, there is an Italian company against Storm in a Teacup, which just now has received a dev grant, so it's not a bullshit, it really does happen. You really do get money, so you just need to have a great game, apply, and maybe you will be rewarded. That's the game. So it's called Close to the Sun. It was the latest dev grant now in November, a couple of days ago announced. Unreal Fest Europe is our own conference, which we held last year in Berlin. It gathered around 500 developers. So we do that. We're going to have another Unreal Fest coming soon, so please just follow our blog. I can't unfortunately announce where it's going to be, but it's going to be in Epic. Last month we've been in Milan, where we held mixers, and these are the stuff we do. We had a mixer here in Rome yesterday, for example. We're very down-to-earth people, so we just sit down, catch up, eat and talk, brainstorm together. We also had a competition developing Beyond. Another Italian company won this competition by Untold Games with the game Terra Mars. So also, yay, Italy. Then I've been with Joseph to Death Play conference, where we had an indie-powered expo. We had 12 developers. It was a completely free exhibit for them and a mixer. It's where we're in San Francisco. So because it's slow, kind of. Excuse me. That doesn't help with this. Oh, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, and White Night, so we've also been in Russia, for example, where we held the same thing. We had an exhibit for developers, we had around 50 pods. present there. So what we do, we provide free spaces, we provide we create like screenings, so where we invite publishers so they can meet developers and talk together, which is great. And the biggest one, which we had last November, now in October, was, for example, presence at PG in Poland. In Poland, we actually had a 24-pod booth where we had around 30 developers who were the booth was awarded, and the Polish developers had an opportunity to meet everyone with the Polish Prime Minister. So these are only the small things that we're like doing to help our developers succeed. We've been doing this way before as well in America, in San Francisco, at the GDC. And I think that the main thing is that we are all doing this not just because we want to, we love our job. We're doing this because we do believe, because we have a dream, because we want the developers to, because we believe in those games and the projects, and that really, without that being successful, we can't be successful. And with the small events that we're creating and traveling all over the world, we're just friends. We really, in a way, we're a family. So, yeah, that's kind of it. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of more stuff. I know we're going to be doing a lot more stuff. So, if you have any questions or something, shoot. Thank you.
You mentioned that you're going to expand basically the user base in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Any plans for it?
Yeah, of course. So it's not a kind of user base, right? It's more evangelist. Yeah. We're gonna have a person who actually joined us now 2 weeks ago, Mario Palmero. He's based in Spain, and he's gonna be the technical evangelist for the southwestern Europe. So he's gonna be your guy. He's gonna be coming like maybe 2-3 weeks. I don't know why, I don't know when, but it's amazing. But with Italy, yeah, we were now at Game Room. We're here with Francesco. We're in talks with AISP, yes, them. So I mean, there's so much opportunity here. So yeah, we're gonna do other stuff.
Sorry, I don't know if you can share something about. I don't know if it's correct to say, and then you're giving more time to the broadcast industry, not just the gaming one. So I was interested to know what's happening in the broadcast field with the insertion of this type of game engine in a company that usually was using virtual set with different technology. I don't know if you are
Like news and so on. The replacement with the background with real-time video Unreal Engine.
No, I'm not quite sure if I understand the question. If we're using broadcast,
yes,
we're having
in
our
the
live
broadcast
streams.
industry, it's 20 years that there are a lot of game engines that are still in the field of companies that are still working, but a lot of them are starting to use the real engines like a second type of renderer, which I found really attractive. And I was interested to know if there is some specific part of your company which is pushing this technology through them, or?
I think he's asking about enterprise.
Enterprise, yeah, no. I come more from the Unreal Engine team, and this is like we're a really small team right now. So I'm mostly doing the field marketing, which is where, let's say, in a broadcast way, we're doing only Twitch streams, YouTubes, but also we're now going to be planning about different strategies, how to kind of, make a bigger impact for the developers. But the broadcasting stuff, I think it's more enterprise, and that's not our team, so I really don't know.
I see that you have people all around Europe, but formally speaking, there's only one branch that is in London, right?
Guildford, yeah. In Guildford we have our offices, yeah, and there is.
But it's possible to be part of Epic being in anywhere in It
is possible, yeah. It is. I think it is, for example, Joseph here works remotely. He works from Lebanon. Then our colleague Short de Jong, who's been in the company 18 years, works remotely from Sweden. Right now I'm working remotely from Prague, but hoping to finally relocate. And Mario's gonna be working from Spain. So of course it's very, that's a very good thing with Epic as well, like on a kind of very personal note, that the company is, you know, if you work with them, it doesn't matter how, where you're gonna be, you know, if you are a cool person, you know your stuff, you believe in the company, you have the vision, you believe in the games, you want to make a difference, then everything's gonna be sorted.
Is there any plan in the future to expand another branch into Europe?
Well, there are plans, yeah. I can't disclose, but it's gonna be soon maybe disclosed. So yeah, there. But we do have like a Berlin branch, but it's not, I think it's not Unreal Engine, right? Joseph?
The Berlin branch?
We have a Berlin branch.
Yeah.
I think it's more legal, it's something is there, legal. But not like in Berlin we do have, that's in Europe. But yeah, the closest one is UK, but yeah, we will be. So, and also I wanted to say thank you once more to Francesco and VIGAMUS for bringing the cookies. So please guys, enjoy the cookies. Let's mingle on that word. Thank you.
Thank you, Milena, for coming and give us this presentation. We really appreciate it. Okay, the meetup is at the end, but there is one more person I would like to thank you, which is our cameraman there, Manuel, who always been supportive of our team in the background. And okay, as Milena said, VIGAMUS kindly offered us some cookies and some drinks. So thank you all for coming, and you can enjoy the food. If you have questions to the speaker, you can have exchange contact details and talk with them afterwards. And we hope to organize more of these kind of events.